Good morning to you all. I want to welcome you to University Unitarian Church, both those who are here in the chapel, as well as those who are joining us by Zoom link as well. My name is Bruce Davis. I'm a longtime member and friend of UUC, and it was here I found my call to UU ministry many years ago. There is one important announcement that I wanted to share with you. Next Sunday, July 18th, will be the first of our full community Sundays. We will be inviting children and families to join us in the chapel. In-person attendance will be open to all, regardless of vaccination status. We ask that everyone wear a mask, and there will be no congregational singing, in order to keep the whole community as safe as possible. The August 1st and August 15th services will also be full community services in that sense. Join me now as we begin our service with the Prelude music. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other. Join me now in singing our doxology. If you in the chapel would wish to sing, please wear your mask, as I also will.
From all that dwell below
I invite you to come into silence with me. If it's comfortable, let your eyes drift closed for a moment. Noticing the breath slowly in and out. Noticing the apparent space within. Noticing inner experiences, thoughts, feelings, imagination. Notice the process of noticing itself. I am the one who notices. Silent observer. May it be so. Amen.
Hi, I'm Sally Dacey.
I'm Michael Linenberger.
Michael and I joined UUC about 12 years ago. My mother had been living with us for the last 7 years of her life, and she had recently died, and I found myself really yearning for a spiritual community. I have found that at UUC.
I'd like to highlight my own personal enrichment and experiences at UUC. And really, it starts with and is as simple as showing up for Sunday service. Sunday service brings solace, it brings meaning, it brings education. I find myself frequently smiling, it brings a tear to my eye at times, and nodding in acknowledgement. And this extends outside of Sunday service to the activities that have brought fellowship and community in this font of love.
Like Michael, I quickly found the weekly services to be inspiring and the music wonderful. Michael and I did coming of age together, and Michael found quickly that he just loved being on Coffee Crew. I have participated in Wellspring and Beloved Conversations and have been on the care team, and I'm now involved in some of the activities of the Economic Justice Committee. I'm also part of the Zen Sangha that sits on Fridays. We have also made so many friends in this community, it's hard to count them all. We love this community and feel it's our responsibility to make sure it continues to offer the same sorts of opportunities for spiritual growth and social justice that we've benefited from. We consider it an obligation to pledge yearly and are thankful that the Evergreen option is available. Please join us now in saying the words we say together every Sunday when we make our offering. This church is a community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. When we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm our lives within it.
Godendo, vezzoso e bello, quel ruscello la libertà. Godendo, vezzoso e bello, quel ruscello la libertà. Tra l'erbe colonne chiare, le tue bare correndo va, correndo va. Va godendo, vezzoso e bello, quel ruscello la libertà. Godendo va, vezzoso e bello, quel ruscello va godendo la libertà. Va godendo la libertà.
I want to share two readings with you this morning, both of which are meaningful to me and that inform the words that I'll bring to you in a few minutes. The first of these is by author Elie Wiesel from his beautiful book, Night. There are no Kabbalists in Sayet, my father would often tell me. He wanted to drive the idea of studying Kabbalah from my mind. In vain. I succeeded on finding a master for myself in the person of Moishi the beetle. He had watched me one day as I prayed at dusk. "Why do you cry when you pray?" he asked, as though he knew me very well. I don't know, I answered, troubled. I had never asked myself that question. I cried because something inside of me felt the need to cry. That was all I knew. Why do you pray? He asked after a moment. Why did I pray? Strange question. Why did I live? Why did I breathe? I don't know, I told him, even more troubled and ill at ease. From that day on, I saw Moishi often. He explained to me with great emphasis that every question possessed a power that was lost in the answer. We cannot understand them, he said, because they dwell in the depth of our souls and remain there until we die. The real answers, Eliezer, you will find only within yourself. And my second reading comes from a popular and more recent book called Fool's Fate by Robin Hobb. In this scene, the young narrator is on a dangerous sea crossing in a craft too small for the wild storm. Exhausted and afraid, he struggles on the heaving deck to approach Webb, an older, seasoned fisherman who's holding on to the rail and looking out over the dark, roiling sea. The calm that emanated from Webb had touched me. His warm serenity pooled around me, diluting my anxiety and weariness. This was as simple and natural as the warmth of breath. I found myself smiling up at him, and he returned the smile, his teeth flashing white beneath his beard. "It's a fine day for prayer, but then most days are," Webb said. "That's what you were doing? Praying?" At his nod, I asked, "Well, for what do you petition the gods?" "That's what you were doing? Praying?" He raised his brows. "Petition? Isn't that what prayer is? Begging the gods to give you what you want?" He laughed, his voice like a booming wind, but much kinder. "I suppose that is how some people pray. Not I, not anymore." "What do you mean?" "Oh, I think that children pray like that, to find a lost doll, or that Father will bring home a good haul of fish, or that no one will discover that I'd forgotten to do a chore. Children think they know what's best for themselves and do not fear to ask the divine for it. But I have been an elder for many years, and I should be shamed if I did not know better by now." "So, how does an elder pray, then?" He looked on me with amusement, then levered himself to sit down beside me on the deck. "Don't you know? How do you pray, then?" "I don't." And then I rethought and laughed aloud. "Unless I'm terrified. Then I suppose I pray as a child does. Get me out of this and I'll never be so stupid again. Just let me live." He laughed with me. "Well, it looks as if so far your prayers have been granted. And have you kept your promise to the divine?" I shook my head, smiling ruefully. "I'm afraid not. I just find a new direction to be foolish in." "Exactly. So do we all," says Webb. "Hence, I have learned I'm not wise enough to ask the divine for anything." "So how do you pray then, if you're not asking for something?" Well, prayer for me is more listening than asking. And after all these years, I find I only have one prayer left. It's taken a lifetime to find my prayer, and I think it's the same one all people find, if they but ponder on it long enough. Join me now in singing our first hymn, Blessed Spirit of My Life. If you here in the chapel wish to join in the singing, please remember to put on your masks.
Blessed Spirit of my life, give me strength through stress and strife. Help me live with dignity, let me know serenity. Fill me with a vision, clear my mind of fear and confusion. When my thoughts flow restlessly, let peace find a home in me. Spirit of great mystery, hear the still small voice in me. Help me live my wordless creed as I comfort those in need. Fill me with compassion, be the source of my intuition. Then when life is done for me, let love be my legacy.
I have always prayed. Only it's not just been one thing. In each chapter of my life, at each age, in each circumstance, prayer has been something new and different. My evolving prayer practice has shown me diverse moments and meanings in that word. And yet, the continuity of prayer over the years and its lasting importance remind me that even in its varied expressions, a unified center is formed in my life. As a blooming rose is one and whole, even in its ever unfolding blossoming. My purpose this morning is not to analyze the wide array of prayer practices that are available to us. My hope is to share with you how prayer has been important to me and what prayer has become and continues to become for me. In sharing my story with you, I invite you to sort through your own life experiences as well. My words with you this morning are in 4 movements. They happen to me in roughly sequential chapters of my life, but once established, each movement has continued to play its role as if it had a life of its own. The result is a complexity and diversity of what my prayer has become, ever renewing itself with the passing years. The first prayers that I remember were as a young boy with many bad dreams, trying to fall asleep each night. My mom would sit with me after I climbed into bed, and she'd repeat with me simple prayers that she'd learned as a young girl. Now I lay me down to sleep. I learned to say the prayers quickly, without really taking any meaning in, as children say. I pledge allegiance to the flag as if it's one word. I'd say, God bless Daddy, Mommy, Jeannie Mac. Who was God? And what was his blessing? Why was it needed? But it really didn't matter what the words meant. Those prayerful times with my mom were warm and loving. Her presence was like the sun shining or the moon on a clear night. I felt safe with her sitting on the edge of my bed, and as I relaxed in comfort and joy, I slipped easily beneath the surface of sleep, rarely to waken until the next morning. The prayer was a deeply relational connection, but seemingly more to my mom than to an image of the divine. As I recited the litany of blessings to parents, brothers, sisters, close relatives, and friends, the loving connection I felt with my mother naturally extended to this circle of others who were close to me in my life. Honestly, this childlike prayer is often with me still, especially late in the night when an anxious moment keeps sleep at bay. When worry for the world or worry for my family grips my heart, I remember and perceive my mom's loving presence, sometimes associated with these same simple words of prayer. It has become a calming and centering practice that relaxes me into a smile. The second movement of my prayer life began in my late teens. My thought processes had developed increasingly toward the logical, the empirical, and the rational. Confronted by a problem or a challenge, I felt that it was down to me to work out a viable solution. At one level, I felt uncertainty about myself and my world, and yet at the same time, I felt growing confidence and self-reliance. During this time, prayer as such didn't really play a role. It was the beginning of certain secular humanist themes that became an important part of my evolving worldview, depending on the power of technology and the scientific method to understand and respond to the needs of the world. But when I was almost 20, I came up against the limits of my newfound self-assurance. I'd taken a summer job as an apprentice climbing guide with the Mount Rainier Climbing Guide Service, turning my love of mountaineering into gainful employment for a few months. Prior to this, my climbing had been purely recreational, and the risks I took were ultimately my business. That changed, of course, when I became responsible for the lives of others as their climbing guide. Now, June is early for Rainier climbs. True, many of the crevasses are snow-covered, and routes may be more direct to the summit. But deep snow, avalanches, and especially sudden storms make the early summer climbs more risky. One ascent, I had two others roped to me, a 45-ish minister and a boy of 14. My fellow senior guide had 3 clients, in addition to himself on his climbing rope. The storm hit with fury as the cloud cap descended upon us. Swirling ice and snow and high winds stopped us in our tracks. Visibility was nil, and the 2 rope teams were quickly separated. The tracks we had made during our ascent were obliterated. So lost on the top of Mount Rainier in a whiteout. Responsible for my life, yes, but more importantly, the lives of this boy and this minister. My only thought, a question: how to get down. Without visibility, the route of the descent was indistinguishable. Barely able to see my own feet, I needed to probe every step with my ice axe to avoid stepping into a crevasse or off an ice cliff. After hours of cautious descent, I knew I was off route, but which way? At a particularly frightening moment, still traveling blind, I realized that crevasses surrounded us on all sides. That's the moment when an unexpected and unbidden prayer hit me hard. Confidence fled, fear at the full, reliance in self nearly gone. I found myself bargaining for our lives. But with whom or what? I had assured myself in my late teen years that there was no superhuman or divine power to call upon. There is paradox here, asking for help when you don't believe there's any help there. It was a feeling deep within. If it had been words, they might have said something like this: if you'll show me how to get these two people down safely, I'm yours forever in trust and love. With those inner words, I felt calmer, as if I had a handrail while I continued to negotiate the hidden chasms and frail snow bridges. A presence, a feeling of safety, as when my mom sat on the side of my bed so many years before. A short time later, I came upon signs of the track down Disappointment Cleaver. Suddenly, relief and gratitude flooded me, and another prayer hit me spontaneously. Thank you. Oh, thank you. We reconnoitered with the other rope team at Camp Muir, then found our way together down to Paradise Lodge. As we descended, now with ease and safety, I felt lighter, an inner presence, a connection to something within me or some part of myself that I had not noticed before, seemingly part of myself and yet greatly expanded. I'd found a prayer of asking for help, not from God as such, more just giving myself over in hope and courage to the will of the universe that the good might manifest, that I might do no harm, that I might carry out the awesome responsibility for other persons to their benefit. It's a prayer that was often with me as a medical student and as a physician during my practice years. Again, that awesome responsibility for other persons in the context of my own clear limitations became the setting for this prayer of asking for help. When I became a dad, I often felt, I can't do this without some inner help. The kids' vulnerability and my responsibility for them was sobering. Sometimes I found I could manage my fear with the support of that ineffable, grounding presence that was growing in me. Again, like mom at the bedside or gratitude on the mountain. A connection of deep support from somewhere within. The third movement of this journey came to me as a young adult. I was forever searching for truth and meaning that is our fourth UU principle, even before I'd heard of Unitarian Universalism. Many wisdom traditions enticed me toward their mysteries, especially their practices of deep meditation. I had read scores of books, but I just couldn't turn book knowledge into the profound experiences I had been reading about. I began to look for a teacher and eventually met someone whose manner suggested that he was familiar with deeper states of mind. Maybe it was just the right moment for me. When I followed my teacher's simple instructions in that first meditation, I dropped into a stillness that seemed timeless. I felt connected to the core of my being and the being of the cosmos all at once. When the student is ready, they say, the teacher shows up. What was even more significant was that I could repeat the experience on my own by following the prescribed meditation process. It's hard to describe what I was feeling, but it was not unlike the sense of peace, oneness, and intimate connection that struck me in that grateful moment on the mountain. I had learned a traditional yogic centering prayer, a practice in the context of awareness. It required no devotion to an image of the divine, nor any belief in Scripture or a supreme being. The steps in the meditation were ancient, gathered from Vedic antiquity of India by the sage Patanjali 3 centuries before the Common Era. I found them simple, practical, and I enjoyed them daily then and even now continue to enjoy them almost 60 years later. Briefly, I'll highlight the 4 steps of this meditation for you. First, Pratyahara. This Sanskrit word points to the yogi's practice of bringing the senses inside, sitting comfortably, closing the eyes, releasing external sensations to sights, sounds, and the like by opening to what's going on inside, like body sensation, relative quiet, inner images and thoughts. The yogi shifts focus from the outer to the inner. The second practice is dharana. This Sanskrit word is often mistranslated as concentration or concentrating, which violates the innocence and ease of what this word really means. Dharana is actually about paying attention gently, as you are listening to me right now, just gently listening as I speak, almost delicately within the meditation. First, a sound is present, listening to it gently, and gradually listening to the silence and stillness itself. At times for me, it's like paying attention to the simple process of paying attention. The third aspect of the practice is called dhyana. In Sanskrit, this experience is likened to honey as it pours out of a spoon. Slowly, steadily it pours, and seemingly with its own momentum. The inner journey of the meditation begins to flow almost by itself. And fourth, Samadhi. This is a word that has many meanings in Sanskrit, and the academics of yogic spirituality argue about what the true experience of Samadhi is. Sort of the way the scholastic theologians of the West argued for centuries on how many angels could stand on the head of a pin. For me, in this context, centering prayer, Samadhi is that moment of pure presence, silent and still, deeply connected to self and cosmos simultaneously. These days, the word mindfulness has become popular to describe such a meditative or prayerful state. Guided mindfulness meditations lead to that same field of silence and stillness within. Thoughts become secondary, floating like clouds on one of our summer days. Stress dissolves without effort in the healing repose of the moment. The various techniques of meditation themselves are unimportant. The resulting inner peace is the point. The fourth and final movement of prayer in my life is an extension of the third. That daily practice of deep silent meditation has been with me now for 60 years. At some point along the way, the quiet center of the meditation began occasionally to permeate my active life as well. I would be strolling quietly on an ocean beach or a mountain trail, or just sitting in a chair looking out the window, and I would realize there were no thoughts, only the wide open spaciousness within and the beauty of nature without. This is what spiritual teacher Eckhart Tolle describes as being in the now. It is also what mindfulness teachers point to as living with full awareness in each moment. Even in the midst of work or play, I may notice that I am present. I am here. It's a gentle sense of self-observation amidst the actions I'm performing. While walking, noticing that I am walking. While talking, noticing that I am the one talking. While washing dishes, noticing that I am the one washing the dishes. In seminary, drawn to the writings of the contemplatives, I read about the ideal of praying without ceasing. This didn't make any sense to me at the time. How can I perform a complex task like sending an email and at the same time perform a prayer? What I now know is that prayer without ceasing is not a performance at all. It's not an additional activity. It's prayer without even really trying to pray. It happens spontaneously and naturally as the nervous system becomes ready for that experience. Any more than I would perform a meditation. It's as if the awareness inactive itself is part of the observation of the world and of the actions that we take. Spiritual teacher Deepak Chopra offered such a practice at a seminar I attended with him many years ago. Begin by taking 3 deep breaths, then become aware of your body as a whole. With your awareness in your body, notice that you are aware. If you will, become aware of awareness. While noticing the body as the object of awareness, notice also the inner alertness itself, the subject that I am. Awareness as the subject of experience always carries with it the capacity to be aware of itself, while still attending to the other perceptions and actions that may be going on. As you listen to my words with you this morning, notice at the same time, who is the one listening? I find that being fully awake like this right now is the epicenter of all my prayer. Witness to the object and the subject of awareness simultaneously. From time to time, with the merging of subject and object in a moment of oneness. And in this moment of unity, my heart begins to overflow. And so, may the blessings of love and gratitude and awareness awaken within each and all. Amen. Please join me now in singing our second hymn, a familiar one, an old favorite, Spirit of Life. And again, if you wish to sing, please remember to put on your masks and rise as you are able. Prayer is deeply personal. I believe that it arises uniquely in each of us, shaping itself to the needs and the movements of our own lives. Spirit of life, we sing, come unto me. May we open ourselves to this inner calling in our own time and in our own way. May it be so. Amen.
Rugiadose, odorose, violette, graziose. Rugiadose, odorose, violette, graziose, violette, graziose, poi vi state vergognose. Mezzo ascose fra le foglie, e spritate le mie voglie, che son troppo ambiziose. E spritate le mie voglie, che son troppo ambiziose. Rugiadose, odorose, violette, violette, graziose. Rugiadose, odorose, violette, violette, graziose. violette graziose. Voi vi state vergognose, mezzo ascose tra le foglie, e sfidate le mie voglie che son troppo ambiziose. E sfidate le mie voglie che son troppo ambiziose. Rugiadose e odorose, violette, violette graziose. Rugiadose, odorose, violette, violette graziose. Violette, violette graziose.